Go for it.
Okay. Thank you all for having me. Scott, thank you very much for connecting me with you folks. My name is Albert. I'm going to be doing a brief presentation today on photography for musical instruments to help you folks out and to answer some basic questions. So if there are technical things that creep into your head as you're watching this, of course, just pipe up anytime. But it'll go pretty quick, but we'll drill down as much as we need to, of course, throughout the presentation. So again, my name is Albert. I do a couple things in life. I'm an EMT. I'm also a neuromuscular massage therapist, so I do a lot of different things. I'm kind of across the board with holistic healthcare, a bit of medical, and of course my art side as well. My art side manifests through being a photographer because I've been playing guitar for about 25 years. So I love stringed instruments. So this to me is exciting to meet you folks because we build things that when I'm at the B3 Vintage Guitar Show or other places I get to play the guitars, critique the necks, look at the inlays, and go, oh, is this USA, is this import or whatnot? And I get to drill down and really analyze that stuff. So I appreciate what you folks do because I don't have those skills. I can barely make a bird box. Birds laugh at us when they fly towards it. So, but one thing to note on here, the little barcode, and I'll touch on this again, is the QR code. A lot of smartphones nowadays have the capability of scanning and then zipping directly to your website. So I encourage people that I work with, if you don't have that on your business card, you're going to see pros and cons to it, but because the technology is that much more available every day, you might want to think about having that on anything that you print, just because if your brochure is lying somewhere and somebody picks it up and they look at your brand of guitar, they can possibly scan that QR code, go right to your website and look at it as well. So it's a way to speed things up. So again, I've been playing for, well, close to 25 years now. I have the holistic side, of course, and I do a bunch of different things. I'm also an event planner. I run some groups that meet monthly in the Philadelphia area for photography, so that's where I get to be kind of like an artistic director. So I know many different photographers in the Philadelphia area. Philadelphia alone has some amazing photographers. I have so many people that I call mentor and friend through those circles that there's a lot of tremendous talent. And also doing that, I get to meet a lot of the nice pretty ladies that are up and coming models. For instance, as you can see over there, that's Meredith on the bottom in the black and white. That's Stephanie. I get to know these people as well, and of course, when I get to shoot bands, I can finally get to say that I know them a little bit. So I've been fortunate enough to work with Steve I a couple of times in brief, but got to shake his hand, of course, and photograph him. Shot some shows at the Starland, which you'll see coming up, where I got to actually talk to George Lynch. So for me, that was exciting. He's one of the reasons why I got to play. But I do a lot of band photography as well, so I try to mix everything in with an appreciation of music and instruments with what I do. But for you folks, digital photography, the need for displaying your work via web or print. Who here has a website for what you do at the moment? Most of you, but not everybody, and that's fine, because as much as I may sound like I'm a proponent of some technology, and I'm on record as saying this, but I'm on record anyways in other circles, I'm not a fan of Facebook. I don't think you should put every thought out there for everybody to look at. Having said that, it's such a powerful tool that for getting the word out on things, I think it's great for promotional use. So I'm the guy that some may joke about, he's always promoting a workshop on Facebook. Yes, that's what I do, because it's great to reach out to a lot of people. Now on my Facebook, I can say I'm connected to a lot of different professional musicians and makers and such, and that kind of helps your business grow. But it's always a double-edged sword, but it is something to consider. Documentation for your building specs. For growth and replication. Of course, everybody jots things down. I'm still a paper guy myself, paper and pen for my planners. And anytime I do build something or I'm creating something, I tend to sketch it out. And then I'm a fast typer and I can blitz it onto the computer, but I still start everything, even the stories that I write, because I write kids' books and other stuff. I write everything in pencil and I transfer it to that. But if that's lost, I'm kind of screwed because I don't have it handy. So if you folks aren't documenting what you do, there's so much knowledge in your noggins that obviously, many of us would love to tap that, but make sure that it's saved somehow so the photography can help you, if nothing else, photocopying or taking a photo of your schematics for what you build. Of course, for advertising with magazines and online retailing, just the whole cruel lesson of CMYK versus RGB alone has been a process for me at times, because I've been shooting a little over close to 4 years now, so I don't claim to be a photography expert, but I have a passion for it, and I have a passion for instruments. So that's why I'm running with it and having a lot of fun, and I think making a big dent into the world with it. But just those two differentiations, if I can say that word, for print versus web, those colors can impact your work time. If you go to print something like a brochure and you don't have it CMYK, you have it in RGB, it goes to the printer, it's going to come out looking different, and you got to redo it, thus your graphic artist time goes up. So little quirks like that to know about down the road will help you. And these again are just examples that I pulled from the web, so everything's cited. If it's my image, I'll tell you. If it's not, I don't claim ownership. It's strictly for the educational purposes there. Advantages of digital photography, of course, it's easy for basic shots. So who here has an iPhone or a smartphone with a camera? Probably most of us. I have a little really cheap flip phone that I get laughed at that shows. I pull it out and I'm like, is that play school? It's like, it's not a smartphone. But smartphone cameras now can go up to 8 megapixel, and it's only going to increase. So you're going to see a lot of interesting shots. Some weddings are even done with it for people that want the novelty, but the camera phones are increasing in capability. However, they cannot replace, and probably won't for a while, the ability of a DSLR. So we'll touch on that in a minute as well. But inexpensive to buy, the essential equipment, and again, the essentials are going to be a few things, but you'll see quickly enough, if you really want to do it right and keep it going, that's why there's always going to be work for somebody like me to maybe help you out, is because I devote my time to having the right gear, setting it up right, giving you the right shot, whereas you might be multitasking and you may not be able to set things up as easy. Easy to store and transmit images. Digitally, we're all pack rats to a point, and it gets out of hand so fast, especially with digital. You click one thing, especially if you have the shutter set to burst. Next thing you know, you get home, you got 600 images on a card. Cards are only increasing in size, megapixels getting bigger, files get huge, you need external hard drives all the time. If you don't have an efficient filing system, then you're slammed with all these images to sort through. And again, that's time off task, because most likely, many of you folks have a day job and you're building on the side. And if you're building full time, you need that time to do the work. You don't want to get slammed with manipulating files. The places to buy gear, for the most bang for the buck, places like Adorama. I have a sponsorship with them with my one hobbyist group, so I'm clearly going to endorse them, but they've been great to work with. There are other competitors out there that the price points are going to be similar, obviously web shop, and you're going to find that pretty much people are consistent because manufacturers mandate certain pricing. But having said that, a place like Adorama is going to have everything you need to get started. So needed equipment, a decent digital camera. So who here uses a digital camera with any type of frequency at all? Pretty much everybody. Do you all have the big black cameras, or do you have the little tiny pocket ones? Tiny pocket one. That's called point and shoot, clearly because it's made to go like that, and that's it. Same thing with the camera phone. On manual mode, you can do some interesting things with that. I've seen one workshop where we had a newbie, this is 2.5 years ago, he showed up, first day ever shooting in a group, let alone shooting live people. And he had a point and shoot camera. Well, one of the guys that was in the group that was experienced showed him how to put it on manual, and his shots smoked the majority of people that I was working. It was amazing. So you can do stuff with a point and shoot, but more often than not, you won't, because if it's on auto, it's going to be a very flat photo. The DSLRs can give you better capability, not just because you can navigate things like aperture, shutter speed, and then with the bigger cameras, you can do white balance. You can do a whole bunch of settings that confuse many of us even still for having shot a while. These can do a lot your point and shoot can't. Adequate lens capability. I've got a Sigma 70-200 with OS on the camera at the moment here because I carry that in my bag with it all the time because I love that lens, but I wanted to shoot some things in here anyways before we started. But having a DSLR gives you better lens capability. You don't need to spend tons of money on a DSLR, and that's the good part about this. If you want to have something in your shop, which is what I'm trying to hopefully gear the presentation towards today, is you're in your shop, whether it's something that's roomy or something really tiny, you'll have the right camera set up to just click and go. But DSLRs can change lenses, so when you have a mount, like I shoot Canon, so I have the EF mount that I look for on lenses. Nikons and Canons are going to be the biggest two mainstream brands, the DSLR. The whole point is you can change lenses. That gives you the ability to shoot wide, shoot far, shoot tilt shift to make things look like they're miniatures. If you've ever seen even video done with a tilt shift, you can shoot a train that if you watched it on a normal view, it looks like a train going by, but with a tilt shift, it looks like a mini train going by. Lots of fun things you can do with the different types of glasses, that's called. But with a point and shoot, you won't be able to use the different glass. Software to edit and store. Who here has ever used Lightroom or Aperture or Photoshop Elements? John in the back smiling like, I guess not, or you do, or?
Photoshop Elements.
Photoshop Elements, okay. There's a lot of mainstream programs out there.
PaintShop Pro.
Which one?
And PaintShop Pro.
PaintShop. I have an old PC, and when I first started shooting, I had Corel PaintShop Pro, and I thought, oh, these filters are great, because I did the one dancer's rear there with one of my Paul Reed Smiths that I had from way back. That was done in PaintShop Pro with a foil effect, and it took forever because my system was old. PaintShop Pro is a resource hog. It sucks to have all your RAM out. Not a bad program, just it's a dog. and how it uses things, but there's various programs. GIMP is one of those online web things that you can always download for free. You're going to see there's probably pro work being done on GIMP right now. It's always a combination of talent. What are you experienced with? So if a kid growing up today is used to GIMP, he's probably going to keep up or close to Photoshop people. But it's all relative. Ultimately, if you have to drill down for more technical things, your advanced programs, which are Adobe, Photoshop, you can't really beat.
What about some of the other freeware like Earth and View or Accent View?
Picasa is one that I'll have, I think I have Picasa listed here coming up as well. You can do stuff in all of them. I mean, there's one guy that I know that shoots kitchens. He has a magazine front and back cover every month in a kitchen magazine. Never thought there'd be a magazine for kitchens, but it's a killer kitchen shot. He uses Photoshop Elements. And we used to tease him saying, you can only do so much with it. He's making a living and he's using Elements. So it's a matter of your budget and how much you want to spend. But we'll come back to that in a minute as well. Again, DSLR cameras, more expensive than a point and shoot, but you can navigate things like aperture, how much light comes in, shutter speed, how fast it clicks, and then many of the other internal menu functions. Yes?
Some of the technical terms you're using, the DSLR, CMYK, does everybody know what those mean? Or
SLR was your single lens reflex, if I'm quoting that right. Again, if I screw that up and I'm on record, at least I'm on record saying, I hope I got that right. 35mm cameras were the SLRs back in the day. The D is, of course, for digital. CMYK, cyan, magenta, and
yellow, cyan, yellow, magenta, and black.
There you go. So that's what you need to think about when printing more. So I learned the hard way with some of my prints. I would go to some places to get things like that done and be like, this looks like crap. Why? Because I had it on CMYK versus RGB.
So why do they have the, what is that, digital lens single reflex? What does that mean?
Digital, yeah, I should have had DSLR and I have DLSR, but got a little bit of dyslexia there as well.
So wait, how is this? Is DSLR?
It's DSLR. Yeah, that should be an S there. But for digital, think of it as the big black cameras versus the little tiny squares.
That just your normal picture.
Yeah.
The single lens reflex is when you look through the viewfinder, you're actually looking through the lens.
I understand that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I had a typo on there.
That messed me up.
Yeah, I should have checked on that one. Lenses from various manufacturers. That's one nice thing about buying Canon or Nikon. You can buy Sigma, Tamron, Tokina, and other lenses to go on your camera body. Your body can age a little bit, meaning camera body, and you don't have to worry as much. Glass holds its value the longest, so if you get good glass in the beginning, you can keep that lens for a longer time. You can always upgrade a body every couple of years. The new Canon 5D Mark III for us Canon fanatics is something that we're drooling over because it's a full frame. Same physical size as that, but it takes a bigger file size, bigger photo. That's also $3,500. So down the road I'll get one of those, but way down the road. The whole point is you can interchange lenses, third manufacturer lenses, save you money and give you capability to give you added variety for how you display your work. And again, with the larger file sizes, it creates a better quality product for your time. Just keep in mind where you're going to send it. So if you're not used to keeping things backed up on an external drive, and I'll ask that question quick. Who here uses an external hard drive? Hopefully everybody does at some point, even if it's a little stick flash drive. If you're not into digital file management that much, that's fine, as long as you have a stick drive. I've had 3 hard drive crashes in my life. It sucks. It's $2,500 just to get a hard drive fixed. That's if it's a full recovery. $250 minimum if it's a light recovery. That means if the disk that's spinning in there is marked in any way, it's gone. It takes a while to recover, and it's very expensive. Tripods and other essential equipment. A solid tripod is essential. Don't go by the price because you'll see some really fancy tripods, but if they're wobbly in any way, the earth tilt alone is always something that, for the fanatics, they think about, but for basic folks like me, as long as I have a decent tripod. He has a videographer tripod there. That's why when you see the stick sticking out, you can use it for a camera, it's just that's for panning. Some photographers have the grip tripod, which I can bring mine in to show you so I can do things like that and then just place it. But the whole point is the tripod should be heavy enough to not move and functional enough, whether it's the clips like what are on that or the twist, because the light tripods will sway, especially with a big lens like that. You put it on the tripod and it starts to droop, so if you're outside, that can be a pain. So a tripod is essential because you're not moving either. It will help minimize any type of motion in your file. Flash cards, the SDHC or compact flash. I use the compact flash in mine, which is the bigger. You can get into the whole science of that. It's really the write speed to it, how fast your camera puts images onto the card. That's one of the biggest differences. Beyond that, you can pay $120 at the moment for a 32 gig, 600 speed card, or you can spend $25 for a 133 speed card, same data size. But that can get technical, so if you're still in the beginning stages, don't worry about it. Just buy whatever they recommend at the desk, or just go cheap and you'll be fine. Again, the external hard drives always back things up at least twice. Not FireWire, but RAID systems or multiple backup drives. I save everything now on my SmugMug site. The card that you have goes to my website, Exit Hibernation Media, but that's a SmugMug site. I put all my JPEGs on there now as I progress, and I save everything on at least 2 hard drives, because again, losing stuff sucks, especially raw files. I shoot in what's called RAW, that's the biggest file size. There's a lot of data in a RAW file where a JPEG is missing certain data. Depends on what your needs are. Because I use Lightroom and Photoshop a lot, I use RAW. But RAW just needs more storage space being consumed. So I have 4 external hard drives at the moment. I have to get 2 more coming up because it fills quickly. The external triggers, and I'll have photos of these things coming up. When you have a tripod, you'll want a trigger just because holding a camera on a tripod, you'll still do this. If you've had caffeine that day, a couple cups of coffee, or you need a cigarette really bad or something, it's going to come out in the photo, because even the slightest motion makes your photo uncrisp. Of course, you want to shoot as crisp as you can in order to have everything be much clearer. Flash units, and I'll show you them one as well coming up for this camera, but the flash units can go up to $400. I've got 2 580s, they're $400 a pop, but you can put those on stands and then start bouncing light. You don't necessarily need strobes. If you're in a studio, it just depends on what you're doing. In a shop, you can probably get by with 1 external flash as long as you know your light, and that can do probably what you need. If you want to get a little more artsy and fancy, then you want 2, one to sit on the side, one to sit on top of the mount, because the one on the mount can usually drive the one sitting to the side. But again, as soon as you start doubling or adding on, you're adding on another couple $100. So keeping it simple, 1 flash will probably get you started for what you need. Backgrounds, muslins or the cloth that you see in like the typical studio for like Sears portrait and all that. I think back to the Google high school days, and you had to sit there, that's a cloth backdrop. Paper as well. The main thing is, and I'll touch on it again, whether you have a shop or a store, as long as you have a space carved out to shoot in, you'll be fine. And then that way you just stay in that same zone, because your lighting should be consistent. It gets to be a little crazy when you walk around the shop and glare. Glare is the nemesis. Every time I'm in a guitar shop, I'll spend hours sometimes trying to work around the owner's cabinet, whether he has pedals or something there or whatnot. If you've got guitars on stands in front of the guitar on the wall and you have to shoot the one on the wall, glare can be a real problem, so you have to deal with that. And again, space to do your photography. That's kind of crucial now, because if you're going to have a web presence at all and you want to do it right, you're going to want someplace in your shop or in your store to do that. So here in a nutshell are just some images of like the DSLR. That's the external flash unit. I can show you one that I have in the bag. Flash cards. I do have a studio system as well that I use. I use Alien Bees, so if needed I can pop up the umbrellas and do the whole 9 yards with that. But you don't always need that. So you can go the simple route and get a point and shoot, and it'll look like a point and shoot. Or if you invest in a couple of extra bucks, you can do a little bit more and get a more professional look. Lighting concerns, light comes in many flavors, temperatures as they're called. So the overhead lights here, the fluorescent lighting, if I'm going to take a photo, this is pretty nice lighting in here. I was shooting at an 800 ISO earlier. I could probably even shoot lower than that with a tripod. But different lights change the color of the photo, and I learned that the hard way. So that's always a science in itself. And that really is what photography is all about, is playing with light. So if you've got overhead fluorescence and then you've got a desk lamp, and you want to shoot, say, pickups that you're going to put into a solid body electric, and you have the body there, you got the pickup wiring, and you want to shoot something to show off how you wire, or whether it's initial, the lighting's going to be off because you've got a lamp throwing out one temperature, this throwing out another temperature, and that's always a nightmare as well. So the DSLRs can do an auto white balance. Software, of course, is always the fix. If you're a really sharp photographer, you're going to get a feel for it, and you'll kind of just know it, and you can adjust. But if you're still learning, that's what the software is for. That can kind of make whites look white, and then your colors look correct. And of course, the software gives you the ability that if I was to shoot a photo right now, and I want it to be black and white and just Welcome to Philadelphia coming out, I can do that. So I can make this yellow pop off, or if I want Scott's red to show only red, I can do that. If I want red brighter, dim other colors, that's what the software will do for you.
Is that after you've shot it or what?
Correct.
Within the camera?
Everybody cheats with software, and if anybody is a snobby professional photographer and they say shoot it right once and that's it, they're right to a point. Everybody uses Photoshop. All magazines, obviously, look at any magazine in the grocery store, you're gonna laugh. It's like, you know, what girl looks like that? They don't. Even product is Photoshopped. Even when I shoot guitars, I'm still gonna sit there and nitpick. Like when I shot this bass, this is a Warrior bass guitar. I had to lay this thing on a black cloth. I was in a store that had no room to move. There were amps everywhere. Tag price on this thing was like $9,000 or something. Scott's laughing, he knows where it is right now. It's probably still hanging there too. But, so I'm worried that I'm dealing with a $9,000 item. So I want to be very gentle. And I am, because I'm a guitar player, I baby everything, because I know if I drop it, I'm going to be out all my gear, because I got to buy it from you. So I had to set this thing on amplifiers with a black sheet, and I had to use the software to basically contrast it out, because if that was the raw image, you would see it laying on a cloth over top a whole bunch of amplifiers and it would look like crap. So it's taking the time to do that. That can be, you know, kind of burdensome. That's where software kicks in. So everybody uses software, because if you didn't, there would almost be no way now to even do it well. And if you shoot green screen, and who here knows what green screen is? Okay, you probably have seen that then. Obviously all movies are done with green or blue screen now. You can pop any background in the back. So, and that's what you'll need the software for. But the goal of your shot, that kind of gets into the whole concept of why are you shooting, what are you shooting for? Like if I want to shoot that guitar neck, and actually I took a quick photo of that earlier just because stuff like that intrigues me. And I have the word in there at the beginning of the presentation. I feng shui when I shoot, just because I get lost in the workmanship, I get lost in the build, I get lost in the potential sound of it, so I call it feng shui photography. Because I have sat, when I did that orange shot with that Dean and those amps, that's a white paper, two cabinets. I think the bottom, I think they're both speaker cabinets, and then that was the guitar. So the guitar had the overinflated tag price on it, but I'm still paranoid because it's not my gear. But I spent 5 hours with just all that stuff, clicking different things, having fun, because I get into that. So if I want to shoot that guitar over there, I'm going to think about why am I shooting it, who am I shooting it for, what's going on. That's where, again, I have the time to think about that because that's what I want to do. You as the builder may not have the time to do that because you're concentrating on getting it out the door to the customer. But again, thinking about the goal of your shot, pre-visualization matters in all types of photography, pretty much anything you do anyways. I'm sure you pre-visualize when you're going to make a guitar. Pretty much the same concept leading into it. This is just a breakdown of the light temperatures for those that have never acquainted themselves with that. Daylight temperatures around, I think, 5,500 K, 5,200 K, something like that. But there's a whole science to light. There's even three-dimensional graphs if you ever hang out with accountants. They can talk for hours on the color of light and the properties of light, and that can get pretty maddening. So in a nutshell, you get used to fluorescent lamp lights and things like that. Yes, sir?
Are light and color different?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, thank God for software.
Yeah.
So, because if I don't know it, I'm going to be doing slider scales.
Take this orange shot you have here. Did you enhance the orange to emphasize that, or is that the way it actually looks?
Actually, for that, some people would fudge this answer. I'm not going to fudge the answer because I love that shot and I'm proud of it, so that's why I'll tell you. I don't think I used vibrant. I think I used a clarity to make the pickups and strings try to pop a little bit more. How you shoot and what you focus on can determine where your actual focal point is. So some photographers shoot only with the pinpoint for wherever they want to go. If I want to shoot the group but I want Scott to pop out, I put one dot on him so everybody's in the photo, but Scott pops out. You can do multiple dots to pop. If I want, I don't know your name, sir. What's your name?
Joe.
I'm sorry, Joe. If I want Joe and Scott to pop, I'll put the two dots on them. Everybody else is blurry. So I wanted that guitar to pop a little bit more, but that color was pretty much that orange.
That's pretty much the way the orange amps look.
Yeah.
So where was your focus at on that?
On this one, I think I got towards the 22nd fret.
The neck humbucker.
Yeah, a neck humbucker, because you can see that that's going to be the sharpest point there. And you can do batches or you can do quadrants or whatnot, and that's where, you know, I could probably shoot, and I think I even have a couple different versions of that exact same shot. I did not use a tripod on that because I'm laying down on the floor. I'm in an attic with the paper and the light set up. I barely have room to move, so I was shooting very tight for stuff like that. And that's another thing about the shot of what you're shooting for. Do you want to shoot just the tremolo? Do you want to shoot the inlays? Again, inlays alone to me are amazing. I can't do intricate stuff like that, so when you guys have the inlays, you want to highlight those, that's when you'll have to pop and zone in on that. But with the color temperatures, it's really just navigating your light, most cameras, whether they're a point and shoot or the big DSLR, have the button on top, which is my shameless plug for Black Rabbit slings, by the way. I love them, they're great. They're working with me now. So this button on here, most cameras have that. You can put it on auto, which is the little green thing. I think Nikon even has that as well. Most of them have a dial. Your really expensive cameras for like the pro wedding photographers and sports may not have the auto mode. Everybody shoots in manual at a certain point. I've been shooting manual for a while now, thank God. That's one thing that was like a pride factor, shooting manual as much as you can. But when it's on green, your photo's going to be flat. When it's on manual, then you can play and tweak. So they all can do that. If you can, learn manual, because with a couple simple things you can even make your shop photos, if you're just shooting something basic, still look decent. But that's why I put that on there, was auto is flat, whereas the manual gives you more customization to the shot.
Coolest thing I found about the SLR is when you push the button, it takes a picture. That's the neat.
Yes.
It's not like wait, there goes the
And that's
red
the-
eye, there goes okay, boom. You know, it's like
Quick.
it's boom, 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 boom as fast as you can click it.
I love
Just
that.
for that reason alone.
And Nikon has the better shutter, and I shoot Canon because once you buy a camera, that's a little side point. If you buy a Canon, you're stuck with Canon lenses or a Canon mount. If you buy Nikon, you're stuck with Nikon lenses, Nikon mount. That's just how these things work. It'd be a beautiful world if everybody could interchange like that. But yeah, the Nikon shutter button, I was helping to shoot a wedding one day, and I had to take the boss's camera. I'm like, oh my God, because with this one, it's like versus. So, but shutter speed matters, and also if anybody shoots in the air, like if you're out shooting, you know, literally you got the deer in your sight, if you move or you wince, you know your shot's going to be off. It only takes, you know, barely anything to throw off the bullet. But these are software examples, again, that we talked about earlier. Adobe Photoshop Elements is very inexpensive, and it's pretty powerful. It can do some basic stuff. I don't down it in any way. I don't down any of these. Even I joke about Corel, but if you can use it and it's making you money, then certainly use it. But Adobe Photoshop, which is up to CS6 now, I think, that's the big one. That's the main one. Apple, if you're an Apple fan, Aperture, I believe, is the main program for that. Adobe Lightroom. Lightroom is a godsend because you can take one photo, whatever you did to it, you can make them all that way. Whereas Lightroom is one at a time. So this is where the value of having a photographer work your photos, that's partly why it does cost what it does even now. Even back in the days of film, you paid a photographer to play with light, shoot, and then play with chemicals. Well, you're still paying, you just have to do it digitally. Yes, sir.
Are you going to cover the applications of the shots that you make
Yeah.
in applications at websites? Because I've always, my biggest problem has always been trying to coordinate how many megapixels you take of a shot. And then when you try to put it on your website, you always have to end up chopping it down first because you can't upload enough the file becomes unuploadable. And since you have to cut it to a certain size to fit in a website anyway, is it better to set the camera up so that it doesn't shoot so many megapixels to start with, that it
That
produces
produces
a...
on your storage space. I'll get to you in a sec, Scott. Your storage space is a factor in that. Are you using an external hard drive or are you using a stick drive? Some photographers, when they shoot, I know one guy who just buys new flash cards every time. This becomes his hard drive. Now this, again, current price is about $25 for the cheaper card. You can spend up $120 some on the same size card and it writes faster.
It's not a space issue.
Okay, so space is not an issue.
You take this shot and it's got tremendous resolution, and when you try to use it, you find it's not usable until you've photochopped it and chopped it down to some 1068 by whatever it is.
You're talking about your web hosting storage limits and the
There's
speed.
that, and there's also the transmission of something, like you want to send a client a picture over the web. You attach it as an email attachment. If the thing is 16 megabytes, you can't send it.
Whatever
the
software.
mail system will choke on that.
Yeah, like Yahoo can only send 25 megs at a time, and you're lucky if you're, obviously everybody's starting to tinker with how much you can even use data-wise now, which I think is a crock separate political
So
conversation.
what kills my time is I have to go back and then edit the film down so that it's chopped down to the size that I can actually use. So
Lightroom would be your answer. If you're in a shop, are you a builder?
yeah.
Okay, I'm going to assume, say you got a project, that's your guitar, you want to shoot a bunch of different things, send it to the customer, show the working process. Click everything, use Lightroom, import it, and then just export it at 72 DPI, and you're done. what the software is the answer to what you're going through, because 72 DPI is usually, now I can break it down, I'd have to maybe check and confirm whether it's 1068 by whatever, you know, those numbers can vary, but the whole point is 72 DPI, and maybe even make sure your dimensions of literal inches are noted correctly. Like I would do 8 by 12 if it's portrait, or 12 by 8 if it's landscape, 72 DPI. And you can check that in Lightroom and it will knock them all out. So then you can send your customer a zip file of everything and it's going to move a lot faster. So in a nutshell, whatever software you're using, just be familiar with how you
So the answer is not to cut down on what the camera's resolution capability
Probably
is.
not. No, because I'm more of a digital pack rat. What if you do click a really cool shot one day that you want to use it for something else?
Like a great big thing.
The higher res is when you'll need that. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm an EMT out in the Shippensburg area, so I was very lucky that when we had a new station open up here about a month ago now. They needed a big photo of 2 ambulances in front of the EMS portion, so they asked me to take a photo of that. Didn't take that long, it was really cool, but it got blown up to 4 foot by 10 foot, so for photographers that's really cool. It's like, oh wow, that's our photo on the wall. But they were originally going to do it with a point and shoot, and that wouldn't work because your point and shoot's sensor, that little mirror thing inside the chip, as tiny as it is, it can only take so many pixels, so that limits the size of what you want to print. Bigger cameras take bigger photos, thus you have to chop them down. That's where software will be your answer. So you got a bunch of variables going on, but to simplify it for you, basically leave your camera settings whatever they are. Just use Lightroom or use a software to import and export at the 8 by 12 or 12 by 8, 72 DPI, and you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, if you upload, do you use an external website for file storage at all?
For the film for this, yeah, yes, because you upload it and use their server to store it.
There you go. Places like Flickr,
But there's limitations on what they'll allow you to store.
correct. There's certain, depending on whether you subscribe to that, I subscribe to the pro level of SmugMug, so I'm paying, I think, 120, 150 bucks a year to host that. I get a lot of gigs, and I can retail product off of there, so any of these images that you see, these are my demos that I carry around now, but anybody can buy them from the web. They can get them on mug, mouse pad, any dimension, size, framed, cloth print, canvas, whatever. That's just because it's more of a photographer site. The upload speed matters. You got a lot of little things going on for that, but really just use your software to tweak for the export, and you should be pretty much okay with that. Terms of use, and I'll touch on that in a little bit, but sites like Flickr and all that, their terms of service, read them, because if you have something very proprietary, you designed a body shape that you just don't want out to the masses yet, don't put it on the web, because places like those, their terms of service enable them to be resold to other people, and that's my biggest gripe about Facebook is its terms of service agreement. Not just the invasion of privacy and all that stuff, again, that's a political conversation, but their terms of service totally shoot any copyright out, you know, it's gone, because I'm always cognizant of copyright and usage right. Those are 2 different things. So if you click the photo, and this is very simple photography law, I'm not a lawyer, but this is pretty much the way the world works. If you click it, you own it. The usage of it is when it gets really gray. So if you click it and post it, now it's gone. Obviously, once it's digital and you send it to somebody, consider it gone forever. But Facebook says we can do with whatever you post, whatever we want. Screw the copyright. That's pretty much why I don't like Facebook there. So I don't put my stuff on Facebook too often. Just know that when it comes to things that you're doing that are maybe unique or proprietary, because if you put it out there, it'll be gone. But back to the programs for just brief. Corel Paint Shop we mentioned. Again, Lightroom is probably the answer to what you're working with there. And Lightroom is very inexpensive. That's now, I think, $150, which is pretty cheap for what it's doing. It's a really good program. Google's Picasa is another one to use. GIMP is another online one. I think the one gentleman mentioned that. But graphic artists will always have a job, because no matter what we want to do, even as photographers, there's only so much we can do unless we really tinker with software. Depending on what you want to do, if you want to put an ad in Vintage Guitar Magazine or Guitar Player or Guitar Aficionado, you can't just click it. You know, I would love to see anybody that could actually click the photo and send it right to the magazine to get done. You'll need a graphic artist or somebody with their skills to do that. So there's some photos of products out there. CS6 is now out, so they might have changed the color of that. When you eyeball programs, you can kind of know what's going on just by the color of the box, and they'll tell you what's current. What to click, and this is totally subjective, but when I approach something, I think about the headstock. That's always like the first thing I zone in on. Everybody knows the Gibson Les Paul headstock shape. They know PRS headstock shape. They know whoever, whatever. That's one of the signature things. Of course, fretboard inlays, body shapes, the flame top or quilt top or whatever finish you have. Certain companies have finishes that stick out. Bridge systems, pickup configuration, anything that has appeal to the culture of what we do. And I'll touch on culture again, but that is what we're all here. We're part of the culture that loves guitars. We love string instruments. You folks build them. I like taking photos. We all like playing them or performing with them. So whatever photo you take, again, the pre-visualization impacts that as well. What's the purpose of the photo? You're building the culture of it. And these are just a couple of things that I did with me tinkering. That's my PRS. That was a Hammer Monaco in the one shop. That's actually now hanging on the wall at the Perfect Fifth Music School in Mechanicsburg, right next to the Steve Vai guitar that was from when he was out there. Something. My photos up there. That's a Warrior print of a guitar that was in one shop that I was helping out. Again, there's the basses that you'll see over there and here. This Dean shot in the corner, that's one of the Deans that I have. That's just as an example of what you can do with Photoshop. You can take anything and then start twisting and playing with it. So I've got like 20 different varieties of the exact same thing, and neon, you name it, just because a couple of kids wanted them in different colors, but they wanted something unique. So they literally have a one-of-a-kind, just with a slider bar capability. And that's a BC Rich that was hanging in there. I put that up as well, and you won't see it because we're all sitting far away, but it's always annoying to shoot a guitar hanging on the wall because you can't really Photoshop the pegs out too well. So that's a little bit of the pre-visualization. If you want to shoot an instrument and have it look complementary to what you do, either hang it on a string from the ceiling or something, but those pegs there or from the seated posture are really annoying to work with whenever we're doing that. I shot that trim just because I want to get something different, different perspective on the guitar. The inlays, that's from a Warrior bass that was a custom that came through. I think that was a fretless bass. That's just one example of inlays. I could spend days in a guitar shop. If any of you let me into your shop, which maybe you will, hopefully a couple of you might at some point. I just love shooting things like that because that's intriguing. And of course, not to sound simplistic, but yes, pretty ladies do help guitars sell. It's been done ad nauseum back when we were chiseling caveman days, etc. But they do help to bring something unique. So this was at a guitar show recently. That's a Ron Smith 7-string semi-hollow body or hollow body electric. And that is Laura Myers. She's an up-and-coming model. Shouldn't even say up-and-coming. She's now hitting the big time. So as she gets more famous, that Ron's guitars are, I think, going to benefit from that because she was a huge hit at the show that day. That's Teresa with a DBZ one-of-a-kind. That's the very first Peacemaker that DBZ put out. That was one of their USA models. So the shop that I was at got the first one, so I called Dean Zielinski. I was helping him do a spokesmodel search for a bit, so I sent that photo of Teresa. She's a singer as well. Meredith up in the corner, that's Michael Badio's one guitar that he used to perform a lot because I did a photo shoot with him, so we used a couple of his as props, and then again, that's Meredith down there with another Warrior. Of course, I like shooting bands, so I get to highlight the instruments, and through this process, this is kind of like one of the networking components that I'll touch on. I get to then relate to these guys, whether it's in passing, and I don't ever say that I'm going to really know somebody. If I really know them, I'll tell you. If I've worked with them, I can tell you that. So I've worked with everybody here, either briefly or in depth, but I get to chat with them. Like hauling Troy's Statina around in my crummy car, I thought was one of the biggest thrills because Troy's book was the first guitar book I ever had when I learned to play. So I'm sitting there like, oh my God, Troy's in my car. You know, we're talking guitars and stuff, and he was telling me how he was playing PRS at that point. But it's in those little moments I get to mention guys like you and your guitars. Matt Ardinger, for instance, I've seen him at a couple shows, but when I played his guitars, his necks are incredible. That was one thing that stuck out whenever I played a couple of his guitars. So I get to tell people in the higher levels about the gear that I get to see on a day-to-day basis or whatnot. Dave Saba was really cool from Skid Row. Got to chat with him and brief too, just because it's like, you know, I was 19 or 17 when that stuff came out, and I had hair. He still has his hair, I don't have mine. But anyways, it's good to network and mention the work that you folks do. The web in your business, power of social media, and your business itself. Again, if you don't have a Facebook fan page, as much as I hate Facebook, I'll say have a fan page because it does help. It connects people. I can't deny that. It's been a wonderful outlet for things like that. The QR code that you saw earlier, you can do that for any URL. So many of the models that I help out, I mean, girls like that come through the workshops that we do, as they get their comp card or resume card that they hand out to various business people. They're putting QR codes on it. They can go to the Facebook page as much as it can, anything else. And with Facebook pages at the moment being free, and I say at the moment, we'll see what happens in a year or two, but it's free advertising in that sense, so it's worth looking into. Who here knows what Google Analytics is or has ever used it? Okay, you guys have. Powerful. Again, it's make Big Brother work for you. Again, there's a lot of political stuff that can be talked about the web, so I'll just concentrate on the good aspects. But the Google Analytics is something really powerful to help you see who's looking at your stuff and where. Just with my SmugMug account, I can literally pull up a map and see what countries people have looked at. I know tons of models in England, for instance, because I do a lot of mentoring stuff online. So they are contacts and people that I chat with on occasion. I can see that the UK was looking at my site, but it's kind of interesting because if you know your demographics, clearly the Japanese were buying up Les Pauls 20-some years ago. That's kind of dwindled. Is the Chinese market doing the same? So where's the money? Maybe you can tailor your gear to be of interest to the buyers overseas. You just never know what you can do with that. But the analytics can help you track every bit of web activity, and it's worth looking into.
Is there a fee on Google Analytics?
I think they are, and Scott, maybe you can clarify, do they charge for that now?
I was using it several years ago when I was working as a webmaster for a business association, and yes, there were fees that we paid annually to be able to use the analytics.
And you can pay to boost to be found quicker. And obviously that's how Google makes money. They came up with the algorithm that was unique for searching. So you can pay to get higher up on the found list quicker. Yep, to do a Google search.
A lot of website providers provide statistics like that too.
Yep.
And every month I just go in and do the same thing.
If you can find it free, obviously, that's probably what you'll really need, and that's it. If you pay Google, you might get more in-depth stuff, but it's really worth it. At least you know that it's there, and that's the main thing. There's many different ways to track.
One of the things I found to be the most effective, and Google keeps hyping this, is if you create good content for your website that talks about you and the work you do, document what you do well. Google will find you, you will get the traffic. The pay-for promotion does not always work well, and if it's done wrong, it actually can backfire seriously and banish you to the remote recesses, never to be heard or seen again.
That's true. Every type, I mean, there's an age-old quote, there's no such thing as bad publicity. Well, unless you're, Tom Cruise or somebody famous or whatnot, and I reference him because he was recently in the news. But when your name's big enough and things happen, it can go either way and you can make it work. But if you're a new guy up and coming, obviously you don't want something bad happening. But that does lead to like the band networking and cross-merchandising. I got a retail background. I spent 7 years in retail management. I'd rather forget some of that stuff, but there were a couple things worth remembering from that. And the cross-merchandising was one thing that has always stuck with me ever since. So when I work with bands, again, not just the big dogs that have, the record labels and the gear endorsements and all that, but even the up-and-coming bands, there's a lot of good talent out there. And these kids are making albums, literally in their room. They don't even have to play an instrument. Obviously there's some bands that shouldn't be out there that are famous that can't sing and do that. They do everything on the computer, but those that are trying are putting out good stuff, so they're worth looking at as potential endorsees of your product if you're open to that. And it only takes one kid to start blasting Facebook saying, hey, check this out, it's great. Next thing you know, you got 600 of their friends contacting 600 of their friends, and that snowballs till eventually your name starts to get web hits because you're getting web traffic from all the inquiries. Same thing, I applied to the modeling world when we helped them. A lot of those girls, and there's male models too, but I mostly work with the females. When they have a website that's up, they start friending other people and they start name dropping until eventually they get enough web traffic, they get inquiries. Some crazy inquiries, some actual legit stuff, and next thing you know, they're on a magazine cover. How did they get there? Web driven. So same thing works with guitar promotions as well. If you got bands that are out there that seem stable, that have the chops, loan them a guitar or something, there's ways to do that safely. If you can, if you have a piece that you want to get out there, you got people advocating for you.
What's your take on a YouTube channel?
Obviously that name Justin Bieber alone did it not. And I think he did a cover of a Judas Priest song one time. I have to find that. I heard he was out there singing Screaming for Vengeance or something. Like, oh my God.
I'd like to hear that.
Yeah.
Tiny Tim Basilica at the Vita or something?
But whether we like him or not, and I'm not a fan of his music, but the kid got huge and he's clearly not just rich, but he's living the life, he's doing what he wants at a young age. So YouTube, absolutely. If you can put something up, just remember, once you put it up, it's gone. So if you have your own original song or some unique chop, like the next Eddie Van Halen technique or whatnot, don't maybe put that quite as obvious, but yeah, there's no such thing then as
Do it with your back to the camera, right?
Yeah, put your back to the
Like
camera.
Eddie used to play to the crowd. You can see it.
Even though Lynch was tapping, I think, before him, and oh yeah, there's Chet Atkins tapping too back in the early 60s. But the whole point is YouTube's good, so absolutely. And that's one thing I encourage any shop owner, any luthier, do a YouTube video. If you're a player, if you're a really good player, play and talk about it. And if you're a really good builder, get somebody that plays. It's not going to be hard to find somebody that can probably do your instrument justice. So absolutely, YouTube is an excellent way to get out there.
I think another up and comer is Instagram.
Yeah. And there's going to be even more
Promotion.
for promotions, any type of web thing. Again, just always keep in the back of your head the terms of service that go on there. You have to give in order to get, and we know that, and I even have to accept that with photography. I know a lot of the girls put different stuff out there on Facebook. I just never agreed to it because if it does make, prime example, the shuttle launch. Did everybody see the photo of the shuttle going through the clouds? Some lady on a plane took her iPhone and just clicked it at random and tweeted it, or Twittered it. Next thing you know, that thing got picked up, 4 million views. It got published in the magazine, and I think she did get her royalties, but you know, weird things happen. You don't want to lose out on something that was yours. But building a culture, I guess that's the basic way to summarize that, is build a culture around what you do, because you all have talent, that's why you're here. And it takes a culture to foster the longevity of it, because anything is going to die if people don't talk about it. And that's the only way you're going to get sold, is if people are advocating for it. My grassroots approach has, I think, helped me to talk to people that are a little bit higher up than what I couldn't have done even 20 years ago. Because now, again, musicians don't make money with records. How do they make it? Live performance and endorsements. So it takes grassroots to support everything. If you're not doing that, you'll be building one at a time for yourself. Prime example of grassroots and other things. Again, this is Carla. She is a designer. She's going to love that I'm doing a plug for her on here. I didn't tell her I was doing this yet, but I took that photo. I was doing a pinup modeling shoot. It's a tangent quick. Pinup modeling is only getting bigger. It's nuts. I don't know why. People love pinup. So I was fortunate enough to call Gibson. Gibson's artist relations office sent me two $5,000–$6,000 guitars from New York City. So they loaned them for me. This is going to be in a magazine coming up. So I shot Carla with a Gibson on loan. So that print will then hopefully be hanging in the Gibson artist relations office. So that's one thing. She's using it on her website. She designed the outfit, so she gets double credit there. She's a model and she's a designer. With the QR code, that helps to circulate her even more. So she's blowing up bigger and bigger every day. So, I mean, I can't take credit for blowing up, but I've helped lately. And she's a savvy lady, so it just takes web hits. She's about ready to go completely international and have her clothing line picked up. So it's
What do you call it?
pinup, well, pinup in general, meaning 40s and 50s.
Right.
She
Oh,
does,
I know it.
yeah, well, she does vintage style clothing.
Oh.
So she's catered to that niche,
Right,
but that
yeah.
niche never dies, it's getting bigger.
Style.
But now she's blowing up bigger because she's been to a couple guitar shows with me, she's done other things, and there's lots of good photographers. So she's a prime example of how the culture of things fosters what she does.
Is that lucrative for you too?
Well, it depends. In the beginning, I did a favor. I did some photos with her. But if she,
It was gratis at first.
everybody starts with, bartering in a sense. He gives me practice or he gives me a project, but if she needs a paid photographer coming up, I could get that gig hypothetically. If that photo gets picked up by somebody, clearly I still own the copyright, and that's one thing that I'm always cognizant on, is when you click it, you own it. Don't ever sign the copyright away, ever. Tina Turner walked in the door, I'm sure we'd all love to chat with her, or I can't even think of a name. Eddie Van Halen walks in the door and you get a photo, that's cool, but don't sign it away unless you get paid what you think it's worth. And you never know, that's the thing, where you always, because digital is so easy, I'll give away in the beginning for a while. I don't mind that because it's really no sweat off me. I can click, tweak, and that's it. And I watch, and I start to see what happens. And people sell other people's art all the time. I'm proud to say my art was stolen once or twice, and it was great, so I can say, my art was stolen, and I had the guy shut down. But the whole point is, you never know the value of it. So give in the beginning and see what happens after that.
So your comments about social media, it's kind of like seriously a really gray zone. Even though Facebook makes the claim to post your picture on there and that they basically own it, you can still get into a fight with them and win.
If you, prime example, say I take a picture of Steph, And she's a great girl by all means. She's an awesome baker too. But I take a picture of her and she puts it on Facebook. If it gets used in any way, some adult site in a bad way, Time Magazine in a good way, or whoever, whatever example you can think of, I never said yes to it going on Facebook. And I'm laughed at in some ways. They tease me because I never agree to it. I just won't. If they say, hey, can I put this on Facebook? I'm like, no. It's not going to say yes, because what if I do? And then something happens. Then I'm tied to the liability. It's easy to overthink it, but yet not. So yes, it's a gray zone. That's why you never give absolute approval unless you know absolutely where it's going. Carolyn Wright is a lawyer out in I think she's in Arizona. She wrote the book Photographer's Legal Guide. She's one of only 2 national experts on photography law because she's a lawyer and a photographer. I think there's only 2 people that have that distinction. Awesome person, and her book is great, but I learned through reading that a little bit more of what to do and what not to do. So yeah, social media is gray. It's changing all the time. There's new mediums coming out, and a court of law of precedence is the overriding thing. Well, what's the precedence for Facebook? Well, that doesn't apply to the next Facebook or whatever. It's going to always be changing. So just be very, I hate to say guarded because it's easy to be defensive. Use it to your advantage, but keep in mind that it's gray and still look out for yourself because you don't want your stuff ending up in some really obscure, crazy site. Like, wait a minute, why is my guitar in the hands of that, doing that? But it can happen. That's a Google Analytics view. Just to show you what you can see, you can pull up geography of where you're viewed. Tons of stats. It's really what you want to pay. But again, if you can find it through GoDaddy, if they're hosting you or whoever, check your site, your host, to see if maybe some of that info is there. That in a nutshell is what I wanted to mention. So of course, if there are technical questions, I'll try to answer them. We can talk about photography, how you apply that to your shop. If you hate cameras, that's even better because then it gives me job security. You can call me and say, hey, you should come out and shoot some stuff for the web or whatnot. But I'll be happy to answer any questions that I can.
It's interesting to look at the image like the Warrior Base, that the black background looks quite stunning, and to hear you say that that's laying on a piece of cloth propped on top of a couple of amps.
2 rows of amplifiers.
There.
Lay the cloth over, put a pillow under the neck so I didn't ding the neck at all. Carefully set it there, and handheld, walking around.
Sort of brings it back down to earth. It's reachable.
I shot 8 or 12 bases from the wall, one at a time, because I had fluorescent lights, I had my flash, so that's 2 different temperatures right there, and that's why I had to software it in, because the marching ants alone, in Adobe Photoshop, you can do where it highlights and it goes around the border, whatever you're dealing with. Then you can isolate that, so I can copy and paste just the base onto something else, but it's not a clean unless you have the pen unit, and I don't have a pen unit yet, so I had to sit there and really just carve around with the mouse clicks, because every mouse click is a circle, it's not a square. So I had to just slowly carve all that out and then blacken everything in and then bring the base back. But I did 12 bases, I think it is 12 bases, right at one after the other, because since I knew what I was doing in that zone, make the most of it. And that's why with a shop, if you have a key spot, keep that key spot. Even if you got the hooks on the wall or whatever, because that real estate, you're now making money on that little crook of your zone where you may not have done anything before. You have a broom sitting there or whatnot. Pull the broom out, make it a mini studio. You just now created web content without really knowing anything.
We have
I have a simple
internet
point and
access here?
shoot Olympus.
No.
Is it possible to do black and white with that?
I'd have to look at the menu. Some point and shoots do shoot in black and white. Some will shoot in sepia, but
So there is a potential for a possibility.
there's potential. But the easy answer is just get Lightroom, because literally Lightroom can do everything. I can take the color out literally instantaneously. Everything is slider scales.
Does that work with a Mac?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Mac has Aperture, which is Mac's competition to Adobe.
Mhm.
But there is certainly Lightroom. Every photographer dreams of an iMac because an iMac is just faster. It's a little bit more, well, it is more reliable. You can do things quicker. This is a nightmare. I have Photoshop and Lightroom on here, but I have a tower now at home, and thank God I can do things a little quicker. And even then, it's still Windows. Yeah. So I have CS 5 and 6 on there, and I've got Lightroom, so I can do what I need, but the Mac does run faster. So if you want to play in any way, in black and white, I love black and white, especially for human form, for a lot of product and things. It's just, your camera is probably more than enough. Now, megapixel doesn't really matter, except if there's one guy that I met at the show that has a 1.4 megapixel digital camera. That's all he needs, because he knows what he's doing. He was a former photographer, so he just clicks stuff.
Yeah, but there are people out there that just use little Instamatics.
Yep.
Yeah.
8 megapixels is probably more than enough, and more than you'll ever need. Even most video that's uploaded is for high, unless it's high def, and they had money as a company to host on a server that can host high def or whatnot. You don't even need high def. So 8 megapixel will get you going. So the easy answer is just get Lightroom or something and knock out saturation or do the black and white filter. There are tons of filters you can get that are free that can play for days. I did a shot for the fire company back around town. I have a ribbon cutting ceremony. So you got 3 sets of hands of the officers in there, the yellow ribbons and all. So I made everything black and white except the red ribbon. It's a really cool shot. We're using it as a fundraiser, but I did that through a filter that I got free in Lightroom. So yeah, that makes or breaks so much.
Do you print these also?
I can. That's where I learned the hard way about CMYK versus RGB. So most printers, if you go to Costco, if you go to Adorama, this is where there's a whole marketing gimmick to what to print and where. I know how to get the best pricing now because I've been doing this enough. And through running my groups, I'm able to get Black Rapid to help me out. So I now have an endorsement connection with Adorama, Sigma, Black Rapid, and a few others. So I learned what to do RGB, what to do CMYK. Most of them use Epson 7800 printers, Ritz Camera, Costco, Adorama, and probably 6 or 8 others if I sat down to think about it. They're all using the same printer. Your paper changes the quality a little bit, so depending on where the paper comes from, you'll see variances. But it's all the same ink, it's all the same printer. That's the mystery.
Some of the newer print inks, this gel, there's like a gel.
Yeah, there's gel ink now, but again, you're going to pay. It's frustrating if you're a home printer. Now I guess to qualify the answer to you, I did not physically print these at home.
Oh, okay.
I still went to labs to do these because the printer, to print something 20 by 30 or 24 by 36, you still need the wider printer, like an Epson 7800 or whatnot. But home printers, if you're going to print it like a sporting event, it's $20 is a decent deal to sell to the dad with his kid playing ball because that paper costs an arm and a leg and the ink costs an arm and a leg. And if your printer died, you're going to have to buy 2 printers just to have it there. I don't even recommend it over
Coming back to the CMYK, the RGB, I know what they are. As far as taking the images, storing them, yeah, could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, you're still going to store it RAW or JPEG. So
Okay.
the CMYK and the RGB are basically just your destination considerations. Like if you're sending it to a printer or printing it at home, then that's when you're going to tweak stuff like that. Otherwise,
So-
just for what you click.
Again, coming back to the software that you start with,
Yep.
like I'm starting with a JPEG file, and then depending on what I want to do, I will translate that to a CMYK or an RGB format.
That's when you start to play in the settings because it's all a matter of where you're sending it. If you're sending it to the web, if it's internet used in any way, Facebook, eBay, your own website, RGB is what you're going to stay in. If you're going to print it, or if a magazine's going to do it, and usually a magazine company, like if you put it in a guitar, you send them a raw file or whoever does the file. I'm doing 2 different projects with a guy that's a pickup maker, so he's going to use the images in vintage guitar hopefully coming up. I'm going to send them, I'm pretty sure, the raw file, probably a Photoshop file, PSD, with all the layers and everything, because I know they're going to rip and tear, and they're going to have to brighten or darken or whatnot anyway. So calibration's another nightmare, which you need your computer calibrated to the printer that you want to print on in order to have everything look exactly as you see from that monitor to the printed product. You can calibrate with places like Ritz and Adorama and all that, and it takes time. You can calibrate to your own printer, and that's a $100 program just to do that. That's why you'll see the option for color correction anytime you ever go to print. And there's just so many nuances of this nightmare that I keep learning the hard way, and it's like, okay, now that I know, one less thing to worry
This
about.
harkens back to my day's department.
So it makes sense what you're saying about saving all this raw data.
I'll say shoot raw, and you'll hear pros tell you shoot JPEG. I know one guy that he does phenomenal work in the fashion world and all that. He shoots JPEG. He's been shooting for 30 years, so his perspective clearly is more seasoned than mine. So for me, I'm learning that, and plus I do weird projects anyway. Something will get carved into a mouse pad or a mug or whatnot, so I keep it in RAW just because I don't know who's going to use it down the road.
All your options are open.
Yeah, that's why I'll just say shoot whatever you do in RAW. Now you can't send somebody a RAW file as easily because that's a big file. And then you have to convert it into JPEG. So the gentleman you had asked earlier about downsizing, you have to go through all that. But relatively speaking, save everything in RAW. That way you can get other people to do what you need. So what other questions do you folks might possibly have for photography and what you do?
I have a question. What do you think about, if you want to get into this DSLR, how about buying used gear? Everybody wants to buy used stuff.
Canon has a great program that if you have a Canon product and say you're registered with Canon, you can send your camera in or your lens and they'll fix it for a reduced rate compared to taking it to just an average camera shop. Or you can upgrade to something that they have in stock. And that actually saves you a couple of bucks. It's not a huge savings because if you look at the brand new price of, say, the Canon 5D Mark II, now that's the full frame. Physically, the camera's the same size as mine, but that's the one prior to the newest one. If I wanted to do Mark II, that's still $2,600 bucks. But if I take my, now this is a 7D, which is a 1.6 crop sensor, slightly smaller inside. But if I send that in to Canon and something's wrong with it, they might offer me a Mark II that's either refurbished or brand new at a discount. So Canon has a really cool program for that. That's why I do like to tout Canon. Nikon's a little more exclusive in how they handle it, but again, quality, you can't go wrong with Nikon or Canon. Those are still the biggest ones. Olympus is up and coming, Pentax is still up and coming, so even Sigma makes cameras now. But yeah, used gear is worth looking into. Used glass, absolutely, but do check it because it's easy to get snowed on buying a lens that does have fungus on the inside or spots, and you won't know until you shoot with it. And that's where eBay gets a little bit iffy. So, but that's simply answered, yeah, I would absolutely check out used gear.
But like suppose a guy like yourself, you get the new model, and now you got a couple of old models or something. Obviously, you got it on eBay.
Correct. Yeah, everybody turns gear all the time. I'll sell one lens to get another lens at some point. And if you have enough photographer friends, somebody probably is going to want something that you have anyways, and the histories are traceable, and there are ways to check. It's like anything. If you were to buy a guitar from somebody, you know to check intonation, you'd be doing all the basics, and know whether it's a DAW guitar, whether it's worth it. So you can kind of do that with gear, but sometimes you never know. Actuations, of course, the number of clicks. I think I might have turned over 40,000 on this one now, 40 to 50,000. So that's starting to get up there. But I'm the original owner, so if I sell it, I can just claim that. Plus, there's ways now to check. There's a software program you can download to see. It interfaces with your camera, and it tells you how many clicks were actually done. Because there's no normal way to just count and see like a triptych. But yeah, I would get a used Canon, use Nikon, as long as it looked clean and reputable seller.
Well, I think that's a good reputable seller.
Yeah, that's where the feedback matters.
You know, if it turns out that something's wrong and you buy it on eBay, what are you going to do?
Well, now you know PayPal is owned by eBay or vice versa. So that it's a nightmare to sell on eBay anymore because if somebody's pissed off, they will ding your PayPal account and PayPal pulls out whatever that sale price was until it's resolved.
Well, that's a 30-day thing. If that camera takes a dump 2 months down the road,
They'll still do it. Well, it's iffy, but you'll probably, as the buyer, you're protected.
it's a hassle.
It is. It is. Yeah, it's crazy.
Everything's a hassle.
I was going to say, it's everything's a mess.
What do you do for a close-up? Do you use like a macro?
Yeah, for a close-up, and that's a very good question, especially for like pickup wires. Like, again, this is something that when I can get into a shop again, not just a retail shop to shoot things on the wall, but to get up and close, I would probably use a macro because that has a focus to infinity, meaning you can just keep zeroing in and in and in. Like my big lens here is great for distance. You can do portraits, especially if people are on paper, but at a certain point, I can't manual focus. So absolutely a good macro. And one of the best macros to get is the Tamron 180, meaning 180 millimeter. I have a 60 millimeter, and it's a Canon, but it's the low-end macro. It's crappy because if you're trying to get bugs, good luck getting a bug to sit still long enough to get that close because you're right off the top. The Tamron 180 is awesome. You can shoot portraits with it. You can do anything with it. Plus, you can get close. If you're shooting bugs, you don't have to get right in the beehive to shoot the bees. And for pickups, you can zone in really easy on that.
What's the light needs? Is that like a What's the?
That's a two. You know, that Tamron might be a 3.5, but and you probably should have shot, so you understand what those numbers are. If you're going to buy a lens for your shop, try to get a 2.8 somehow, some way. That means it can shoot in the lowest level light. Because if you don't want to spend big money on fancy lights or a flash, you want to be able to shoot in as dark of a room as possible. Kit lenses that come like the Costco kits or Sam's Club or whatnot, you can get a Canon Rebel or a Nikon, I forget what number the Nikon would be, but you can get a camera with 2 lenses in it. You can't shoot in the dark well with that. You can't shoot as fast with that either. A lens measured at 2.8 or even better, like a prime, like a 1.4, or even better, a 1.2 if you can get that, would be the best just to shoot for things like that. So that saves you down the road too. There's a whole world of, you know, jargons with that too. Other questions?
What's an average cost of something, doing something like this?
If I were to do that photo like on a professional basis for you, hopefully you would have more than one instrument. It really depends on the goal. I mean, it's rare somebody would say, come in and take one photo, and that's it. And honestly, I totally would wing it. I'm not out to gouge. I live about an hour and a half away, 2 hours from here, so I would price it accordingly. To me, again, it's exciting to be involved, so it'd be minimal. If you want to print, it depends on where you want to have the photo go after that. If it's just a shot to hang on the wall, that's almost easier because I know where to print it. I know how to source it out to get it done for you and packaged. If you want to do things down the road, say it's like going to be on a CD cover or something like that, depending on the situation. If it's non-celebrity, you price it pretty much to be one shot. If it's the next Guns N' Roses album, you know that that could sell in the millions of units, so you want to maybe be tied in if you can to some type of royalty. But it's all still rapport and being straightforward. It can get crazy if you act shady, but if you're straightforward and explain what you want to do, it's cool, and it can be really affordable on that.
So you didn't answer.
No.
Yeah, I did. I was realizing I didn't
Where you running from?
Whose campaign am I working for right now? I think that answer would work for either one. No. But it really could go any which way. It's like if you were to build something and say, was it you that brought in the one right there that built that? Are you
No, Mike.
Okay. Yeah, so you built that one. If he wants me to shoot that today, obviously I'm going to shoot today for him because I get to be a part of this, and that's really cool. So I'll send him some low-res JPEGs. So if he wants high-res, he can purchase that for a very modest price. But again, to drive out and shoot your latest piece that you really want to show off, I might say like $200 because that covers my gas and tolls. Because this is really breaking it down. The $70 covers the gas and tolls, and then the processing time because I might have to sit in front of the computer for anywhere from, and that's the other thing that people don't ever think about, especially in the world when you work with models, but product as well. You can sit in front of that computer for days to do one image. Hopefully you're slick enough to get it done 15 minutes to an hour, depending. But roughly, I'd say if we're going to shoot one piece, probably $200 would be reasonable. And that's just a starting number, and it could be lower if it was something else. It could be more if you needed a whole shop photographed. But again, the lifestyle is why a lot of photographers do what they do nowadays. Everybody's a photographer. Everybody's a model. Everybody's doing the hey y'all. And everybody's a photographer. So you do it for the love of doing it as much as being involved with meeting folks like you, the builders, or if I get to hang out with the bands and I'm backstage and I'm having a beer next to Neil Young or something like that. Kind of cool. So, I'll get paid less if I get to hang out and do whatever. So it's all relative.
Thank you.
So we have a low budget. So for showing up, we have a shirt for you.
That's awesome.
So actually it's a high budget because it's a quality shirt. So we have both a medium and an extra large. Which would you be? You're probably a large, right?
I'm a large, but you know what? I'll do the medium because that means I have to run.
Okay. Thank
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for being here. And what you may want to do is take a few photos of our build.
Sure.
It's a joint build. We're all contributing to it. Okay. And what's going to happen is after it's built, it's going to be auctioned off. The money's going to be given to Guitars for Vets.
That's awesome.
So we have a couple of different things that have been contributed. So possibly you get good photos of the build and process. We want to have an article in the magazine. You get your name on that photo too, but it's all for charity.
I actually connected with Wounded Warrior recently because I did again, I'm a massage therapist as well. So I did a Veterans Appreciation Day last week. I got him Shippensburg paper for doing that. So now I'm going to be working with Wounded Warrior coming up. Like one day a month we'll do 10-minute on-the-spot massages for people to come out. Plus I bring out acupuncturists and things like that. So I love giving back to vets. So that's exciting.
What will happen is the money will go, and then they give guitars or get guitars for vets to kind of help them through shock and get back accustomed if they've been injured and have therapy. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Bass
it's
guitars
great,
alone for PT.
Right, exactly. That's what it is, just for the therapy. So it seems like a great charity, and hopefully we help out.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.